Here in the United States, we have now learned, based on Project Veritas reporting, that our government is using taxpayers' money to bring migrant children straight to human traffickers.
The tax dollars of people who are listening are paying to put children in the hands of criminals. I said, I need to make you aware. And they said, Tara, we don't get sued by traffickers.
So he attempted to traffic children, and he's still at address in Texas.
Yes, we have 44 unaccompanied children at that address. We have 25 unaccompanied children at that address.
As Congressman Andy Biggs said on our show earlier this week, the United States government is acting as the logistics arm of the cartel's child trafficking ring. Now, if you're wondering how this is even possible, Project Veritas spoke with one of those children who detailed what happened to her.
¿Quién te patrocinó a ti?
Una tía, pero me corrió en la casa. Ella me ofrecía, y a mí no me gustaba eso.
¿Te ofrecía qué?
Me ofrecía con los hombres, pues.
Pero ella, ¿cuántos hombres ella te obligó a estar con cuántos hombres?
Bueno, con muchos, ni porque no me gustaba lo que me hacía, me obligaba.
¿Ella de verdad era tu tía o fue alguien que se...
Dice que ella me conocía desde chiquita, pero yo no la conocía.
So the United States government knows they're ultimately sending unaccompanied migrant children to the homes of human traffickers, and they're turning a blind eye. But you know who never turns a blind eye to his horrific stories, even when criticized and censored for it? Award-winning journalist Lara Logan, and she joins me now. Let's welcome in now award-winning journalist, the great Lara Logan. Lara, it's good to see you. And I feel like, I know this is not a report we want to see, the Project Veritas reporting, because it's hard to watch, but it's confirmation of what you have been talking about and have gotten so much backlash in the mainstream media and from the establishment in highlighting this issue of child trafficking that we have in the United States. When you saw Project Veritas's report, what was your reaction?
You know, it's such a serious subject that I feel kind of sick in my stomach when I see that. I'm not surprised, obviously, because I've been working on this subject, but still having the confirmation, this woman that was interviewed by Project Veritas, you know, the position where she worked, the kind of work that she did, she's an older woman, she's very measured, and it was sort of depressing because you know that your tax dollars are being used in this way, but you know that, you know, we've all seen the flights in the middle of the night, you know, that people are being sent across the border. I know because I've been down at the border. I know because I talk to Border Patrol agents all the time, and I talk to law enforcement and to immigration and to NGOs and foundations. So you know that this is happening. But at the same time, you know, to have this woman come out there and say things like, okay, you've got multiple children going to the same address over and over and over, we all know that that's impossible then for them to be reunited with their parents, right? And then when you see that one guy he's sponsoring a child at this address in one apartment, and then he's sponsoring another child at the same address, but just, you know, another apartment, and you know that he can't possibly live in both of those, and it really breaks your heart. You see that in the Project Veritas report, you know, you see some of these children. They go there on the ground, and I was grateful to Project Veritas that they took the time to do that. And I really think that they've learned over time, and they know how important it is to not just have to take someone's word for it, right? And so that was very helpful watching the report. But you know, above all, what you take away is that the government of the United States is knowingly involved in the trafficking of hundreds of thousands of children who are crossing the southern border. And that is devastating. That's absolutely devastating, because as I'm someone who has spent some time investigating, and I know what happens to these children. And for us to have any part in that is unconscionable. It's absolutely unforgivable.
And in fact, in the first part of the series that Project Veritas dropped, they interviewed a young teenage girl who supposedly is being pimped out by someone who refers to herself as her aunt. The girl says she's she didn't know her, so she doesn't know for sure if she's her aunt, but the lady tells her she's known her since she was little. And in it, she talks about how the threat of deportation, the threat of ICE is used against these children in order to make them go along with what they're being asked to do by their so-called sponsors. Actually, we have that soundbite. Let's take a listen.
Y a mí no me gustaba eso.
¿Te ofrecía qué?
Me ofrecía con los hombres, pues.
Pero ella, ¿cuántos hombres ella te obligó a estar con cuántos hombres?
Bueno, con muchos, ni puedo, porque no me gustaba lo que me hacía.
Emerald, I'm glad that you played
And the
that.
whistleblower. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad you played that clip because it just reminds you of how vulnerable these children are. You might hear 16, 17 years old and not be as concerned. But I have a 17-year-old daughter, right? And when you hear that young girl saying, I was 16, and I'm staying with this woman who's supposed to be my aunt, I didn't know her back home. I don't remember her, but she says we're related. And yet she wants me to have sex with all these men. And so I ran away. I mean, think about that. Because all those people who say, oh, we don't need any checks at the border. We don't need to verify that people are really family members. We don't need, to check who's taking these kids. The one thing that the whistleblower says later in the piece is that all of these controls have been relaxed, right? I know, because I've been working on this, I know from border agents whose jobs were to verify these families, whose jobs disappeared and went away, right? That they're not even doing those jobs anymore in these agencies. So I know that what she's saying is true. And what that effectively means is that you're just handing these children over to anyone, and they're not coming here and having the benefit of a better life, are they? They're not having a better life. When you're a 16-year-old girl who's at the mercy of a woman she doesn't even know in a foreign country, who deliberately, what we hear from the whistleblower, according to her, is that they deliberately are not taking these kids to their court dates and not keeping them compliant with immigration so that they can hold those deportation orders over their heads, right? And they have that control. And that shouldn't surprise anyone, because we know that American employers have done that for years, right? They've hired illegal immigrants and then not paid them. And then when they try to complain about it, what do they say? Well, we'll get you deported. We'll call ICE. And so what that left me with was this sense that these are the most vulnerable of all people in our society, and we are doing nothing to help them. We are doing absolutely nothing to help them. Not only that, but we're helping the people who are exploiting them and trafficking them. And I just want to remind everybody that, the average amount of time a child survives once they're sex trafficked is no more than 2 years. And so that's for these young children. And they're raped and beaten and tortured every day until they die. I mean, that's what you would call a better life? That's the American dream today under this administration? That's what we have to offer hundreds of thousands of children? And why is the Biden administration resisting any effort to get to the bottom of this? They are not opening the doors to the media. Journalists are still locked out from covering this. They are not prepared to answer any questions about it.